Yep. So welcome to an Out2Lunch East of Education Committee webinar. These are held Wednesdays at noon Central Time, and I think most of you have seen the controls here, but do feel free to chat in the chat box, and there is a relatively small number of us, so after John's 10-minute presentation, we'll have 5 minutes for Q&A, and you may at that time want to raise your hand and actually speak. We could talk freely. We don't necessarily just need to put questions in the chat. Next slide, please, John.
Yep, there we go.
And so I said these are 10-minute demonstrations of earth science data and tools with 5 minutes for Q&A. If you want to see our previous presentations, you can go to our wiki site or our YouTube playlist. And with that, I'll turn it over to John. At the end of this, we'll have a recording that we'll post up on our page, as well as the PowerPoint with the links to these sites that are in here. So thank you, John.
Okay, yeah, well, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us for this quick introduction to the Digital Atlas of Ancient Life website this afternoon. I've put the link to the Digital Atlas at the top of the chat. It's also available right here. I'm gonna click that. I encourage all of you to follow along and sort of explore on your own as I go through this sort of whirlwind introduction to what the Digital Atlas of Ancient Life is and what some of the resources are that are within this website. If you joined us last week, you heard my colleague Don Haas talk about Earth at Home. You can sort of think about the Digital Atlas of Ancient Life as sort of a component that falls under the umbrella of the Earth at Home project that we recently launched at PRI. The Digital Atlas of Ancient Life project has been supported by 2 National Science Foundation grants, and it actually dates back to, if I remember right, 2012. So we've actually been building this resource for a long time, and we do actually have a lot of content on it. So again, this is just a very brief introduction. The major components of the Digital Atlas of Ancient Life can be accessed right on the main homepage. We have an introduction to what sort of new content we've recently added, and then all the different subcomponents. All of the subcomponents of the Digital Atlas, though, can also be accessed just from the main menu bar here at the top. And I'm going to sort of go through each of these menu items really, really quickly here. So the Digital Atlas project initially began as a way to create field guides to fossils from particular regions and time periods within the United States. So what these were meant to be is sort of digital versions of, say, a Peterson's Guide to the Birds of North America, only in these examples, they're fossils from particular time periods and regions. So as just an example, one of these is the Neogene Atlas of Ancient Life for species from the southeastern United States. And just to sort of give you an example of the sort of content on there, we have information about all sorts of different ancient species of, in this case, snail shells. This is a group that I work on in my own research. These are venomous cone snails. So for every species, we have information about where they're found. We have images of them. We have maps of showing where the different species were found during different time intervals. We also have functions on these sub-websites that show all of the different species that have been found in a particular region. This is just another way to sort of interface with these field guides. The idea being here that if you had a shell in your hand and it was from the fossil record of the southeastern United States, you could compare it to these pictures and say, oh, I think it looks like this species right here, Cancelaria conradiana, and find out information about this species, like its description, high quality pictures of it, and again, maps showing where it was found. So that's just one component of the Digital Atlas project. And again, we have really detailed atlases for 4 different regions and time intervals so far within the United States. I also, related to these field guides, I also want to highlight the fact that we've created through various partnerships a variety of classroom exercises that are ready to go that use these field guides. And they've been designed for students of different age groups, ranging from all the way actually from elementary school to middle school to high school, and even the college and university level. So I encourage you to explore those on your own, as well as the field guides. I'll also really quickly mention that related to these online field guides, we have a couple of apps that we've developed for iOS and Android. They're basically just smartphone app versions of the website. And we also recently developed an app that allows you to, let's see, maybe I scrolled past it, and sorry for the quick scrolling here. We created another app recently that allows viewers or allows users to basically take a picture of a fossil, and it sends it to an expert who can then identify the fossil. So we're excited about that too. So both of these apps are completely free. You can find them on the App Store and download them and check them out. The second major component of the Digital Atlas project is the Digital Encyclopedia of Ancient Life. And we've spent a lot of time at PRI developing this over the last few years. What we've developed is a fairly comprehensive introductory level textbook to paleontology, covering things like the nature of the fossil record, geologic time, the topic of evolution in the fossil record, especially macroevolution, an introduction to systematics, the practice of naming species, as well as classifying them and understanding how they're related using phylogenetics. We have chapters on paleoecology. We have a chapter on the new emergent field of conservation paleobiology. And then we have a bunch of pages that are really sort of much more focused on individual groups of fossils. And we now have coverage of most major groups of macroinvertebrates, which we're really happy with. We also have a little bit of introductory content on chordates or vertebrates. We'll have more coming soon. And then we have a bunch of chapters as well on land plants, including their development, fossil record, and evolutionary history. So we have a lot of different content in here. I'll just, let me just pick a page at sort of at random here. We can go to evolution and the fossil record. This is again just a nice introduction to the topic of evolution, ranging from natural selection. I'll go to that page, all the way to sort of more advanced macroevolutionary information about how macroevolution works and how we study it in the fossil record. Just about all the images that we've created for the Digital Encyclopedia have Creative Commons licensing, meaning that you can take the images and really do whatever you want with them for nonprofit educational purposes, and we absolutely encourage that. The last major component of the Digital Atlas project that I want to introduce is the virtual collection. This is something we're really excited about and has gotten a lot of use as courses went online because of the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, before any of us knew that was going to happen, we decided it would be really neat to create an online collection of 3D photogrammetry models of all different kinds of fossil specimens, so that instructors and students can either use, can sort of explore fossils outside of the classroom. When I used to teach paleontology courses, I would, if we were studying, say, let's go to something fun like trilobites. If we were studying fossil trilobites, I'd bring out a big, drawer of fossils and throw them on the lab bench, and students would crowd around and answer different questions about the fossil specimens. I would never suggest that virtual models are better than the real thing. They're not, but the real things have limitations too. Students can't study them outside of class. They certainly can't take specimens home. So one of the real advantages of virtual collections is that they allow students to explore fossils on their own time. And these models that we created using a process called photogrammetry are really pretty slick. I think that these models are also really useful for classroom presentations. They're all loaded on a website called Sketchfab. But before I show you that, I just want to show, sort of introduce the fact that you could be sharing a screen like this with your students. You could hit the full screen, and now you can very easily share fossils and talk about their features with your whole class. The advantage of this is that in a classroom, an instructor might be holding up a small little fossil and then pass it around, and by the time it gets to the the student in the back who can't see the fossil in your hand, enough time has passed that the student doesn't really remember the context or necessarily the features that you were showing and what have you. And this presents a new way to sort of share fossils with your students, either directly in a presentation, or you can provide links so that they can explore the fossils on their own time. We're really excited about the collection. We have over 600 models in our virtual collection, representing just about all major groups of fossils. These all come from the collections of the Paleontological Research Institution. They're really the best of the best specimens that we have behind the scenes in our collections, and also on display in the museum. So we've really put a lot of effort into creating this virtual collection over the past couple of years. We're really excited about it, and it's gotten a lot of use during COVID, which we're happy that people have found these models to be useful in their teaching. So those were sort of the main highlights. I know that was really very much a whirlwind, but I just wanted to sort of share some of the main components of the Digital Atlas project with you, and then leave some time to just talk about any questions that you might have. So with that, I will I'll wrap up this part of the presentation and be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you, John. I see a comment that 3D imaging is terrific. I will use this. Expert identification of fossils from submitted photos is freely available.
Yeah, it's free. Yeah, it's freely available through the app. So the way, let's see if I can. I know I went by that really quickly. Let's see here. This is called the Digital Atlas Identify app, and this was created using with funding from the National Science Foundation. It was developed by my colleagues at the University of Kansas, and it is completely free. All you have to do is download the app, and the app basically ties into the camera on your iPhone. Unfortunately, we don't have an Android version of this yet, but it ties into the camera on your iPhone. You take a picture, and then it uploads the picture and sends it to an expert who will identify your fossil for you.
And you have a ton of experts online, I guess, willing to.
Yeah, we have a group of experts who can help identify these fossils.
Excellent. Shelley asks if there's time, could you describe how you take the 3D images?
Yeah, actually, so if you go under virtual collection, there is a link. Let's see. Right here, there's a link that says Photogrammetry Guide. So what we did is we created the student Emily Hoff, who helped make so many of these models over the last couple of years, created basically a step-by-step sort of cookbook style guide that goes through the entire process of how how we create these models. We give all the specifications for the equipment we had. We have a fancy camera that we use to create these models, but that really isn't necessary. You can even use an iPhone to do it. The expensive part of it was that we had to have sort of a gaming style computer to run the software, which costs about $100 or so to create the models. It's very computationally intensive to create the models, and so the expensive part was really the fancy computer. The software will run on slower computers, but it certainly works better on a faster, more powerful computer. But if you want to see all the details, this page really does present step by step in a very straightforward fashion. Click here, click this, click that, and explains how you go from again, sorry, I'm scrolling fast. How you go from a specimen on a lazy Susan all the way to having one of these interactive 3D models.
Jonathan, there's another question. Are there any issues that you know of with students using this with Chromebooks or iPads?
Is it using the models or using the website?
Jessica, do you want to unmute and explain?
Sorry, it took me just a moment to figure out how to unmute. Like I know when I use, there was a wonderful app on the iPads that we used for 3D models of the periodic table of elements. But it didn't work very well with our Chromebooks. It could only work with the iPads. And I'm guessing for a certain reason, I'm not sure. I just have not tried this on Chromebooks, and I guess I need to try it before I have the students do. I didn't know if you knew in advance of any problems.
I have not heard of any problems, but if you encounter any problems, I would like to know about them. But I've not received any feedback that people have had problems using the models on different kinds of computers.
Does anyone else want to unmute themselves and ask a question? I'm not sure if I missed questions in the chat here.
Again, everything everything that I've really quickly just shared with you, everything is free, and we just hope that folks use it, and we'd appreciate any feedback that you might have. We continue to grow these resources, especially the virtual collection we've still been working on developing, and the digital encyclopedia is still very much under development. I didn't say anything about the audience for the digital encyclopedia. So we've written this encyclopedia textbook with sort of the model student, who might use this as a student in a introductory college level course who has never taken a paleontology or earth science course before. But that being said, we really do think it would be accessible to advanced high school level students. We also think it's a great, refresher for instructors who are, just want a refresher on certain topics, or who are looking for images to incorporate into their own courses. And again, just about, unless otherwise indicated, just about all of the images on the entire website have Creative Commons licensing, and you can use them for whatever you want. And we encourage that.
Renee has a concern. The identification app sounds fantastic, but may pose an issue for those instructors assigning fossil identification projects to students. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, right, if the goal is for, I suppose students would have to figure out that the app exists. It is vetted through, basically what happens is when you take a picture with the app, it sends an email to a scientist. And I'm guessing that, if the scientist started to see a whole bunch of emails come in from the same groups of students or something, they'd probably, start to wonder a little bit what's going on. That has not been a problem so far. Oh, I just saw a mention come up that it would be perhaps useful for Science Olympiad students. That's something we're excited about. So for Earth at Home, I recently created a virtual collection of rocks in general for people to use. And then I created a subcategory focusing just on the rocks on the Science Olympiad list. And I'm going to do something eventually for fossils as well. And that's something we'll announce when we have it together. But I've heard this comment before, and I think it is something that's in demand and of interest. So I think we will create a special page that has a virtual collection of most of the fossils that are on the Science Olympiad list. I am aware of that list, and it does provide very good coverage. So that's something we're thinking about doing. Oh, there was another question. Can we import the 3D images to PowerPoint? So the answer is sort of. Here's the quick story on that. So at least in the Mac version, I don't have a PC, but at least in the Mac version, it is now possible to incorporate 3D models. The problem is you cannot incorporate the texture layer, which gives it the the sort of photographic look. When you pull in a model, especially if it's a very flat specimen and doesn't have much relief, it just looks sort of like a flat white blob. For specimens that do have a lot of three-dimensional relief, they look okay, but it's just not working that well yet, unfortunately. One thing that I didn't mention, so let me just quickly let me load a model. I can just load, whoops, that's the YouTube video introduction. Let me load, let's just find a brachiopod. Let me just load this model. So when you go to these models, you can click this little button in the corner. That takes you to the actual Sketchfab site. If you're not familiar with Sketchfab, you can think about it as like the YouTube for 3D models. It's just a place where people upload models of whatever they've scanned, and certainly most of the stuff on Sketchfab are not fossils. It's sort of everything under the sun. We've assigned public domain licensing to almost all of our models. And so what that means is that you can just click the download 3D model here button, and then you can do whatever you want with the actual 3D model. You can 3D print these things if you want for free. You can incorporate them into presentations. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can also, if you have a website that runs with iframes, you can click the embed button and just grab the model code and dump it into the iframe. I think some learning management software systems also accept sort of work with iframes. You can just dump the code into video box, and that will embed the model directly in whatever you're sharing with your students, which is really, really handy. So, there's ways for you to interact with these models outside of the digital atlas as well. And again, it's all free.
And Jonathan, I'm noting they have individual URLs, right? So you could theoretically put the URL into a presentation, click on it, it would go, right?
Absolutely. So that's really easy. You just click the share button and just grab that code, and you can dump it into your presentation. And then while you're giving the presentation, you can just click on that code and it'll pop up the model. So if there aren't other questions, I'm happy to take any more questions. If there aren't, though, I really do encourage you to just go. I'm going to go back to the homepage. Just go to the Digital Atlas of Ancient Life.org, or just type Digital Atlas of Ancient Life into Google, and it'll come up, and just sort of explore the different parts of the website. There are a bunch of different components here. We have a lot of content in all of them, and just explore and check out what we have, and get in touch if you if you have any questions.
And John, can you go to the last slide in the slide deck?
Yeah, let's see if I can remember how to get back to that. There we go. Yep.
So we just want to thank you for participating this fall, and we will start back again with our webinar series on January 20th. Do check out our archived wiki page to look at past presentations, but also you can check it out, and once we know who is presenting in January, there'll be information there. John's presentation will be posted within a day or so, along with the PowerPoint that goes along with this. So thank you again, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening in, and like I said, please check it out, and we'd love any feedback you have.